Good afternoon, and welcome to this very special session with us at the Ladies Study Group in Kolkata. The world as we know it is rapidly changing. Each new day brings with it fresh questions and new concerns on the way ahead. How can we all participate and contribute to make this world better for us and for our future generations? While it is hard to find all these answers at one place and at one point, I'm sure our conversations today with our very special guest will help us find inspiration to set new goals and create new objectives for our individual sustainable development and make our world a better, safer, and a healthier space. Our guest today is Dia Mirza. Dia is undoubtedly one of the strongest and the most exceptional women in the industry. She dons several hats with aplomb: a beauty pageant winner, a class actress and a film producer, and above all, a humanitarian who works tirelessly to make this universe a better place. She is the very epitome of grace and beauty. Let's welcome to our screens, like a breath of fresh air, Dia Mirza.
Thank you, Dia, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. It was so generous and kind. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dia, for your time and welcome to Ladies Study Group.
Thank
And
you.
of
It's my
course,
absolute pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure.
and double congratulations, of course, your recent wedding. And we can all see this gorgeous pregnancy glow. You're looking absolutely radiant. And we wish you the very best. Lots of love and blessings.
Thank you.
So, today we have the privilege of going beyond the stardust and to know more about the real person behind the public persona. So, Dia, we witnessed your ascent from a pageant queen to a Bollywood star. And what I find so remarkable and so commendable is how simultaneously you're such a committed environmentalist and you have such a strong purpose, and how effectively you've used your power of your influence to bring such a positive change and really left no stone unturned for that. Such an extraordinary journey. So, I want to start at the beginning. And I know that you were born and brought up in Hyderabad in an environment which fostered a deep and abiding relationship with nature. And I think that continues even today. So, can you tell us about your days of growing up and the school that you went to, which also was so, so unique?
Sure. Um, I think the foundation that each of us gets in the education system that we are exposed to, and also, of course, our parentage, what our parents teach us through their own actions and choices. I'm going to share some of those, and that perhaps will help us all understand why I love nature as much as I do, and I feel so connected with nature. Um, I went to a school in Hyderabad called Vidyaranya High School, which directly translates to Forest of Education. I was
Wow,
born
what a
in
beautiful name.
yeah, I was born in 1981, which is the year that the alarm bells for climate change had started to ring. Scientists had presented their first solid report of evidence on human activity and how it was altering the climate of the planet to the world. And obviously, this was a report that had deeply affected and impacted my school principal, my parents. So it was these were conversations about human behavior and human practices were constant right through school. We had a very rare kind of assembly. We used to um, talk about and debate current affairs, but
Oh,
aside,
okay.
we would also be questioned and we would be compelled to think about things that we normally didn't think about. And
Mhm.
consumerism was one of them, and
Really?
how yes and the fact that advertising and a capitalist society that was driving consumerism, what kind of an impact that would have on nature, and how, as human beings, we were living so far away and moving further and further away from nature. So that
Mhm.
was what school was doing, and alongside that, they taught us how to compost. A lot of our classes happened under trees, a lot like Shanti Niketan. Um,
Wow.
yeah, the school was inspired by J. Krishnamurti. So
Okay.
many of the principles and a lot of the foundation of the school and the attitude of teaching was very similar to what Rabindranath Tagore did with Shanti Niketan and what J. Krishnamurti did with Rishi Valley. Um,
I
and
think your sports days also were very exciting. For
They
sports
were,
days, there was
they had
no
no
medals,
competition, no competition. Our
no
school didn't
competition.
believe in the concept of competition. It did not believe in putting children in uniform. There was no examination, grading, ranking, percentile system to class 8. Even in class 8, when we started, and it was the ICSE syllabus. So even when we did start doing tests and preparing for the board examination, we were still never ranked in class. And like I said, sports day, we would all get a laddu. Just for fun.
Amazing, amazing.
So we were always only competing with ourselves, and that ties into the idea or the understanding that in a capitalist society that is hugely consumerist, the mindset and the way people think was one that was, of course, people talk about leadership and people think that when you push people in the direction of competition with others, you're creating leaders, when in fact you're making just lives miserable. So we were always encouraged to compete with no one else but ourselves and to be the best versions of who we were meant to be.
Mhm.
And it was a very similar environment at home. Both my parents, my biological parents, loved nature. My mother has a green thumb. She's grown every plant. She knows the names of every plant and all kinds of floral plants and biodiversity. And I
And
spent
she's Bengali, isn't it?
Bengali. I spent many afternoons and evenings with her planting trees, planting flowering plants, learning about them, rescuing injured birds, rescuing injured animals, treating them, setting them free, watching her cry over the pain that and the anguish she would feel over an injured animal that she couldn't save or a bird she couldn't save. So a very strong sense of empathy and a very deep connection with nature, even at home, that my mother represented.
Is it true
And
that your first pet was a python, a baby python? Was that your
yes,
first pet?
we had
That's true, is it?
carpenters. It's true. We had carpenters at home, and they found a baby python and they put it in a tic tac box and brought it home to
Wow.
us. And my father decided to save it and take care of it and release it into the wild when it was big enough. So this is at the 1980s when Hyderabad had lots of rocks and Banjara Hills was like this endless land filled with beautiful little rivulets and lots of streams and lots of big rocks. Much of that doesn't remain, but it was
Correct.
absolutely beautiful. So we saved the python and we used to go looking for mice and insects to feed it.
Amazing, amazing.
Fear also was another concept that was never introduced to me as a child. And if anyone in my sphere would, try and say things like "Khana jaldi kha lo, buddha baba aa jayega" or anything like that, they'd lose their job because my parents and my education system didn't believe in the concept of fear.
That's
So
amazing.
there's another very interesting anecdote, which I think, in many ways, was a foundation for my value system.
Hmm.
Uh, my parents were going through a financially hard time. There were all kinds of constraints, and my father at the time was approached by this industry to redo their factory, and he did a little bit of research on the factory, and he recognized that they were spewing affluents into a nearby river, and he
Okay.
refused the job. And I remember witnessing a very it was such an incredible argument between my parents, and it was something that really stayed with me forever. I mean, has so far.
Of
Where
course.
my father wanted to stand by his values and what he believed in and stood for. And my mother said, I understand and I respect all of that, but where are we going to get the money to pay our rent or, take care of the bills that we need to? So that struggle, I think, is very real for all of us
All of,
as a
absolutely,
human
absolutely.
being, because we have created and built a society that lives on double moral, you know
Yes,
so long as we
absolutely.
are
Yeah.
making money, we're okay with killing. So long as we're making money, we're okay with, So it's a
You're
very,
right.
very important, I think, lesson I learned very early in life.
And also, I think very early in life, I think you wanted to be very financially independent. And that was a lovely story too, with the famous shoes, the boots that you wanted to buy. But actually, the message in that is such a beautiful message, I think, of empowerment.
It See, Dia, I think for all of us who were born in the 80s, India was changing dramatically from 80s,
Mm,
right from mid 80s to late 90s. Our markets had opened up. There were
yes,
all of fancy things that were suddenly being sold, clothes and shoes and makeup and all of these things that we'd never seen when we were younger. And
yes,
obviously, like every other young person, I aspire to own
of
many
course.
of those things. And my mother, being my mother, would always say, "Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes.
You
We've all been
work
told that. We've all heard
for
that. Yes.
money. Yeah, you make your own money and you buy all this yourself. I'm not buying all this rubbish for you." So at about 14 and a half or 15, I saw these pair of really expensive boots, which were, I think, about 8,500 rupees at that time. And I asked for them. And my mother said, "There's absolutely no way. There's no way. I'm not spending that kind of money on a pair of shoes. You want them, you want your money, you buy for yourself." So I said, "Okay." I was so hurt because I was one of those kids who would let my pencil become like that small before I chucked it. Or so I was extremely, I felt, even in that moment of rage, considerate, and I didn't make unnecessary demands, and I was very hurt by what my mother said. So in my rage of fit, I said to her, "You wait and watch. By the time I'm 18, I will be making my own money. By the time I'm 19, I will have my own car. By the time I'm 20, I will have my own house, and I will never ask
Amazing.
for money again."
Amazing. Amazing. But it's true. I mean, I think incidents like this actually empower one and, make you take these decisions and stands, and you've really lived up to it. And then I think you started modeling very young, right?
Yeah, and interestingly, the chronology of events unfolded exactly like that. I was
Yeah.
18 when I won the Miss India, and I won this beautiful car. And by the time I was 20, I'd bought my own house, which I still live in Bombay.
Okay.
So, yeah,
So I'm going to take you back to the first ad that you ever shot, which was, I think, with John Abraham. Am I right? Yeah,
yeah.
and I read him an interview where he said that he had to look at you and walk into a pole because he was so awestruck by you. And I think that hasn't changed. I think we all have the same, you have the same impact when we all look at you. So tell me from there, how did Miss India happen? How did you move to Bombay? How did it take forward from that ad?
It all started with, so I never consciously thought that I want to model. I was planning to pursue a career in law. I wanted to study international law, and nobody in my family was inclined
And
towards
moving, yeah,
modeling or beauty or any such thing. In fact, there was a lot of condescendence when it came to things like that. Mhm.
correct.
So I was spotted by this person called Roma Gill in a Secunderabad club in Hyderabad. I was sitting and reading a book one afternoon, and she came up to me and she said, "We're doing this fashion show. You're really, really pretty girl. Will you come and walk for the designer? They'll pay you, I don't know, I think she said 5,000 or 7,000 rupees for the show." And I sat up and I was like, "What? I will get 7,000 rupees to walk
You
for
can
this
go
show.
into your shoe account.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was for a shoe label.
Yes. Oh, okay. Okay.
So I went back home and I pulled out some clothes that I thought would work with the shoes that they had shown me. And I went and I did this fashion show and I made money. And that then led to other jobs. And it was extremely empowering to be earning
I'm sure.
my own pocket money, so to speak, at 16, 15 and a half, 16. And then by the
Amazing.
time I used to take this overnight bus from Hyderabad to Bengaluru. My father would come and drop me off, deposit me at the bus, and then talk to the fellow passenger and say, please take care of her. She's my daughter. And this is in the days when the mobile phones,
We're
you know,
not there. Yes, we were not there. Yeah.
and I started modeling regularly. And my father's best friend was the owner of a ad agency in Bombay called Enterprise Nexus.
Okay.
And he was most upset when he found out that I was modeling. And I had done a few campaigns already. I'd done some print campaigns in Bangalore. And he said, why didn't you ever connect with me and ask me to get you, a gig? Like I would have helped you.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I wanted you to discover me. So,
Amazing.
so he said, oh, I think there's something very interesting that we're doing right now and you must do it and you'll be perfect for it, blah, blah, blah. And he got me on board for this ad that I did with John that
With
he had to do
John.
35 retakes for.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
I wasn't sure whether he was doing it purposely or he's genuinely like
I think it's
not able to
purposely.
walk a straight line and bump into the pole. But
Okay, lovely
it was
stuff.
really fun. So that was
So
actually
what
the
was
first
it?
I
So what
came
was it
to.
like being in Bombay and such a young person? I think you were 18 when you moved there.
Yes,
Were
but
you
I
18?
came to Bombay to shoot this commercial when I was 17.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then the Miss India pageant happened. I was offered to be a part of the contest, again, completely by fluke. And it was an editorial shoot I was doing in Bangalore, where the journalist decided to ask me a few questions because she was very intrigued by the fact that I was working part time and studying at that
Mm-hmm.
age, in a time when
Correct.
it was not really the norm in India. I was also working for a multimedia company at that time.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so she did a small interview with me. It was, I think, about 250 or 300 word interview. And Times of India Bombay saw that and they got in touch with us in Hyderabad and invited me to be a part of the contest. And that again was like a big fight at home because my mom was like, there's no way she's ever going to study. She's gone now. My dad was like, let her go because this is a rare and a unique
Of
experience. She'll get
course,
to learn
absolutely.
something
Yes.
new. And I moved to Bombay to train for the Miss India when I was 17. And I won the Miss India exactly a month after I turned 18.
I think it was the year was 2000, right? The millennium year. Such a special
It was
year
the year of
also.
the millennium. It was a very special year because all three of us, Lara, Priyanka, and
Amazing.
myself, went on to win our international pageants and become
Special
like
year. Yes. Yes.
our names were in the Guinness Book of World Records and stuff like that. So
So, a lot of young people have this dream that they'll move to Bombay and it's full of glamour and it's all very, hi-fi. Is it really like that? Was it a struggle when you actually moved?
they are, to be honest with me, because of the privilege of having been invited for the contest, having won the contest, and the support system that the Times of India group gave us.
Okay, yes.
And also just the fact that there was so much work after I won. I was doing endorsements, I was shooting, I was traveling. There was a lot. It was like a paradigm shift. Everything changed dramatically.
Of course. Yes, I'm
I
sure.
think the challenge really lay in the fact that I was on my own. I wasn't being chaperoned by my parents. I had to really find my own voice and my own rhythm and learn how to navigate egos
Hmm.
and all kinds of people.
Of course, I'm sure. I'm sure.
That I think that was challenging and terrifying also at many levels, but I did okay. I did okay. I really, because it's something I wanted so much to be independent. I really valued it when I got that independence. So I started, filing my returns when I was 18. I set up my
Wow.
own home in Bombay when I was 18. Um, it was it was wonderful. And simple things like getting like a phone landline connection or a gas connection.
Yes.
These are things that are not easy to kind of do in a new city. Now, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
there's so much more access because of Google.
Of course.
Again,
Yes. Yes.
they
Yes.
didn't have in the year 2000. So it was such a wonderful and such an important learning curve.
And then movies happened quite quickly, I think, soon after. How did you get your first role? I think Rehna Hai Tere Dil Mein, right?
Yeah. I actually started getting offers right after I won Miss India, but I didn't take on any because I had to go for the international pageant. It was right after I came back from winning the Asia Pacific that I started to get a lot of offers. And actually, honestly speaking, I had not consciously thought about a career in film, although it was something that was introduced to us as an idea while we were training that we would get offers, and we,
I'm
we
sure.
needed
Yes.
to be prepared about how we wanted to respond to those opportunities. Now, with me, I've always been a naughty. I love theater. I love drama. I love literature and history. I love psychology. And
Okay.
I grew up watching some of the finest films because my mother was an avid film watcher, as was my grandmother. Apparently, she would finish her chores for the day and through the week and look forward to going to the theaters, the cinemas every
Okay.
Saturday to watch her film. And it was like a
Okay.
routine with that. She had 7 kids. So it was like, I guess that bug to be a performer. And I was one of those kids who would watch a movie, come back home, like do the lines in front of the mirror, dance
Oh.
to all the songs, perform and entertain everybody all of the time. Like I was like, beta zara wo gana dance karke dikhana. So
So cute.
yeah, and I would take part in plays in school. Every annual play, right through school, I was part of. So the performing arts was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was not an
Enjoyed
alien
it. Yeah.
subject to me at all, but I didn't know anything about cinema. And so the first film that I was actually offered was a film called Om Jai Jagdish that Anupam Kher was
Okay.
directing,
Okay.
and I needed to. I said yes because I said I may as well do this now and regret it than not do it and regret that for the rest of my life. Because here are these people who are being very kind and gracious and giving me this opportunity, and I must make good on it. And I think, quite honestly, learned a lot on the job. It was very frightening because I was not technically informed or educated at all,
Mhm.
and that made me very nervous in my first few outings. Rehna Tere Dil Mein was actually the third film I filmed,
Okay. Okay.
and it was the first one to release because my
To
producer
release. Yes.
was staring at
Yeah.
it to get it out there.
Yeah.
But
I know.
and
I
even
think you're still, so many people still call you the Zara Zara girl. I'm sure you get that a lot, right?
absolutely, it's such a privilege to be associated with
I've,
the character that you played.
yeah.
Um,
Reena Malhotra, right? I think Reena Malhotra was her name. Yeah.
that's right.
Amazing. I've watched that movie many times myself. Very lovely film. Lovely movie. And lovely songs also. Lovely songs.
Yeah, and the film was a giant box office disaster.
Oh,
So yeah, and then it went on to
okay.
become
Box
a
office
cult.
disaster. Okay. It's a cult
Yeah, and
film.
then it went
Exactly.
on to
Yeah.
become a cult film. So it was very interesting. Again, a huge lesson for me that young. When at such a young age, I'd been put up on this pedestal. Everything was going my way. Everything. I mean, imagine from the age of 18 all the way till I was filming for these movies, things were happening exactly the way I wanted them to. I was earning well, and I was, getting to travel and see the world and explore and do all this work that I loved. And then suddenly I had to face this enormous rejection in the form of what is called a flop. And a flop is, oh my God, like a curse in the Hindi
Yeah,
film industry. It made me lose projects overnight. It changed people's attitude towards me. The media was so uh, unscathing. I mean, they were just horrible to me. It was terrifying. And it was much later that I realized that if something is meant to connect with people, it will in its time.
absolutely.
And we
Yeah.
should never expect things to work the way we think they should.
But I think it is, like you said, a cult film. And I think so many people relate their own personal love stories to the story of Reena
I
Malhotra. Am
repeat
I
it
right?
all the time. I proposed to my wife after I watched this movie. I
Oh,
took
there
my
you go. There you go.
I watched this and I watched this movie 45 times, 50 times, 100 times, and
Imagine.
oh my
Amazing.
God. Yeah.
Lovely. But I think, you've said at that time that the perception amongst the filmmakers was that you were too pretty to be a part of the serious cinema. So, how difficult was that for you? Because you did do some very serious roles like Mahesh Manjrekar's film and also Tehzeeb with Shabana Azmi. So, how were you able to break out of that mold?
This is actually these films, the ones that you just named, are the ones that were my effort to break out of the mold because I think when you're a thinking person, you are drawn more to thinking parts and you want to work with thinking
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the mainstream work happening at the time was extremely misogynistic and patriarchal. And I just didn't feel respected on a film set. I mean,
I can
yes, there were
imagine. Yes.
perks and frills and privileges of being the main lead or the star or whatever, but there was so much about the process that I felt like my intelligence was insulted by. And it was quite early actually in my career that I kind of stepped back. Of course, the bad reviews for some of those films didn't help either. I was like very, very determined to do substantive work that would contribute to my growth as an artist and
As an
also
correct.
change this perspective or perception that people
The
had
mindset. Yes. Yes.
mindset. Which is why I did a film like Pran Jai Par Sham Na Jai, which was Mahesh Manjrekar's,
Yes.
or a Zeeb with Khalid Muhammad, with Shabana Azmi and Urmila and Arjun Rampal. And then I went on to doing many other such films. And it in ways I think took away the opportunity to be a part of the usual song dance mainstream work, but I think it really contributed to my growth as an artist and helped me understand what it is that I enjoyed more than anything
Hmm.
else. So you're right, the way I looked didn't help at all because
Amazing.
thinking
Who would think that that could be a problem?
no, a thinking filmmakers associate a thinking woman with a certain skin color type, a certain um, there's a certain package or a fixed package that they have, which is a physical package, and I didn't
True.
fit that mold at all.
But then you did, I think, Love Breakup Zindagi. You produced that film too, right? And
Yeah,
that was again, I think, a beautiful movie. Naina was your character, if I'm right? Naina,
yeah,
such
right.
a lovely character. How was that experience?
So the result of absolute abject frustration was me wanting setting up my own production company and saying, if people are not going to create the opportunities I believe I deserve, I'm going to create them for myself.
Myself. Very
And
well said.
that's when I set up Born Free Entertainment and made my first feature film at 26 as a
Hmm.
producer, acted in it. I really enjoyed the process. I know every single person on the film was just so loved and respected and cared for, and really looks back at that experience as one of the most special experiences of their lives. And that was the objective of making that film, to just help people understand that there is a method in the madness. It can be done with love and grace and respect. And then I went on to make a film called Bobby Jasus, where I didn't cast
Yes.
myself, cast Vidya Balan in the lead. And that again kind of surprised everybody because they were like, it's your production company, you're the
Correct.
producer. Why are you casting another leading lady? And I was like, because she's fantastic and she will be
That
fantastic.
was my next question, in fact. Why did you cast yourself? Yes. But that was a
Because
fabulous
I
movie.
love her, and the budget of the film needed to be justified with a certain caliber of performer and star power, and that's when I actually understood a lot about the kind of choices my producers were making that baffled me when I was younger. But now it all made sense because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
it is a
correct.
business.
Yes, true, true. And there are just so many movies, Dia, but I'm just going to touch on a couple because there's so many different things we have to talk about still. So I do want to speak about Kafir because I think your role of Kenaz was so beautiful. And for those of us who have not seen Kafir, please go and see it. It's on, I think, Z or Balaji, am I right? Yeah.
It's
It's
easy.
such a it's beautiful role. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And I think you played a mom in that, right, to Seher?
Yeah, it was so Kafir actually came to me at a wonderful time because I think I was so ready to understand the part and the politics of the story, the social and the psychological distress that the character had been through or was going through within the narrative. I was primed for it. And the story, interestingly, had been written 13 years ago. And it took
Oh,
13 years for the filmmakers to get the story made. And it was a life altering experience for me as an artist because, firstly, it was deeply gratifying given the substance, the depth, the length, and the gravitas of the part. And the fact that I identify personally and deeply with so much of what the story is saying. There are very few narratives that we tell that have so much nobility in them. It's a noble story. And I loved being Kenas, and I was completely in love with my daughter Seher, played by a
yeah.
wonderful young girl called Dishita. And touchwood, it's a performance that won me many awards and many accolades, and I think kind of came at a time that gave me a fresh lease for life. I mean, I just come off Sanju, which was like this ginormous blockbuster, big
Another
film.
fantastic movie, though.
Yeah, it
What an
was a good.
amazing job you did, Manyata, right?
Yeah,
Amazing.
it was fun.
Amazing.
But the soul satisfaction that I got from Kenas was unparalleled. And it's also, I think, spoilt me for life because I think in many ways I will be looking for that substance in everything that's coming my way now and not really find it because something like this comes your way only once in a lifetime.
So, can we hope for a season two?
There
Is
is
there a
much
season?
talk about it, but I don't think there can be a season two. It's an unrequited love story. I mean, there's.
True, true. Hard to continue that then, yes. So, tell me from the time you started in movies till today, do you think there is a change in the way they perceive women and young actresses and how the role of women in the industry, basically? Is there a change in that?
Definitely, Dia. I think
There
there's a shift, not a significant shift, but the shift exists. I think the younger generation of men and women are a lot more self-aware, more socially aware, more politically aware. Have learned to stand up and speak up for themselves a lot more than perhaps our generation had the courage to. Um, and I mean, it's also, I mean, the fact of the matter is that you are living in a patriarchal society. It's an industry that is also largely patriarchal, also largely driven by men.
yes,
I think the change in the lens that we perceive ourselves and our narratives uh, is beginning to kind of shift because there is a little more representation of women in all aspects of the
all
craft than
aspects. Correct.
perhaps
Yes,
ever before. You have more
true.
female writers, editors, cinematographers, directors.
Directors, yes, yes.
So when I started out, a film set would have at best three women on a film set of about 150, 180 people. And today you have a better representation of both
Yeah,
both genders.
correct, correct. So also, I think the objectification of women on screen, etc. I think, do you think there's going to be a shift in that? Because that is something that really bothers me also, you know.
Something that we've been debating and has been questioned and called out repeatedly. But again, like I said, it all depends on the evolution of the storytellers and the way they
True,
think and operate.
true,
Like
true.
I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I do sessions like this with men sometimes, and they ask me ageist, sexist, patriarchal questions, and they don't even realize that they're
They
being
don't
any of.
realize it, yes.
Yeah, and so it's almost like it's unfortunate that it's normalized to such a degree, and it's so part of the cultural mindset that
Very true.
most people don't even see it. So until people become better aware, things won't really change. But it's getting slightly better. I know a lot of leading ladies who now refuse what is called an item song, and
Mm.
there is some changes coming along.
Thank God. Much needed, really. So, Dia, how do you integrate the performer in you with the advocate in you? Because you're doing such amazing work, and that's, I think, a parallel life that you have, or a simultaneous kind of existence of both these
I
worlds, right?
think it's become one and the same now, Dia.
So, same
Uh,
thing, right? Yes.
yeah, for me, it's like
And
one
you,
is the extension of the other. There's no separating because the kind of paths that I'm choosing now stand for something, care about something, speak of something that is important to me. I don't take on work as an actor if it doesn't really compel my spirit and doesn't make me
yes,
say, okay, something nice that's going to come out of this. Um, and The work that I do outside of cinema, I think, in so many ways has contributed to defining my purpose and helping me understand what it is that I was possibly born to do. And just giving me unadulterated joy. And a lot of this work is deeply personal, it's deeply painful, it's deeply, I mean, I can't even tell you the levels of anxiety we feel
I'm sure.
because of the magnitude of the issues that we're dealing with. But the joy of being a part of the solution is unparalleled.
Yes.
And
And
that's
that's what I'm
really.
hoping, that people who are watching us today will also get inspired. And I know that there are so many different hats that you're wearing. So I'm going to just ask you about them one by one so that everyone knows about the different facets. So, one is that you're also a board member of the Sanctuary Nature Foundation. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us about how did that happen and what is the work that you do there?
So the Sanctuary Nature Foundation is an offshoot of Asia, which is India's largest and most widely read environmental magazine. That has been that Bittu Sehgal has
It is
edited
like, yes.
and put together, and one of the first people I doggedly pursued when I wanted to become involved with environmental activism was Bittu Sehgal. So I
Okay.
consider him my mentor. I learn a lot from him. I continue to every day. He's really the guiding light in my life. And the Sanctuary Nature Foundation is like the grand central of environmental action. You know,
Okay.
it's a destination that brings together all the good people in the country and the world who are working towards conservation, wildlife, and nature.
And you're also the ambassador for Wildlife Trust of India.
Yes.
So,
So the Wildlife Trust of India does extraordinary work. They do undercover detective work where they bust wildlife poaching rackets. They've gotten wildlife kingpins arrested after years of investigative work. They've successfully managed to put in systems within the country that didn't exist for investigation of such cases. Most of their work is risk to life. They do a lot of veterinary, so a lot of rescue, rehabilitation, and rewilding work in different parts of the country. Heroes, each and every one of them who works at Wildlife Trust of India is a hero. And I feel really proud that I can be their representative and their ambassador.
and more than ambassador. I think there's some little tidbit that I read about that you have a baby rhinoceros named after you. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's Opajero Wildlife Sanctuary in Africa.
Okay.
That because of the work that I do with animals and wildlife and nature, they they basically named a baby rhino after me.
How cute. And there's also a leopard named after you in Lucknow Zoo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read. So
There's
cute.
a
That's so
leopard is
lovely.
named after me, and I named both her cubs.
Yes.
So she was brought in from Mirzapur.
Okay, so that's the connection.
So Renuka Ji, who was at the time handling the Lucknow Zoo, said called me and she said, "ये एक हमारे यहाँ लेपर्डस आई है मिर्जापुर से, हम सोच रहे हैं उसका नाम दिया मिर्जा रखे." So I said, "जरूर रखिए." So she said, "नहीं, लेकिन अब इसके दो बच्चे हुए हैं, आपको उनका नाम देना होगा और उनका ख्याल रखना होगा." So I said, "ठीक है, नाम भी दे देंगे, ख्याल भी रखेंगे."
So you've named them also.
Yeah, I mean, Ashoka and
Okay.
Nakshatra.
Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. So, Diya, we are so proud of the work that you do with the UN, and I know that you're the United Nations Environment Goodwill Ambassador and the United Nations Secretary General's Advocate for Sustainable Development Goals. And I think it's come a full circle because you said you wanted to be an international lawyer, and now you work with the UN, and such a privilege, and we are so proud of that role of yours. So, how did your journey with sustainability actually begin?
Uh, I basically discovered in the early 2000s that so much of the ill health that young children and people were suffering was caused by environmental degradation and pollution, and specifically cancer and heart and lung ailments. And I would keep asking the doctors why more was not being done to raise awareness and challenge um, the way in which industries were doing business, and why environmental action or environmental awareness was not a part of our mainstream media. And what I realized very early was that scientists, environmentalists, people who work in wildlife protection or natural habitat protection work in silos. Si- and they weren't getting an opportunity to reach mainstream society. And because of my foundation and my background through school and my upbringing, I realized that this was something I understood well and I needed to act on it. And what if I could become a bridge between these incredible people who had the knowledge and the science and take that to mainstream society by using my platform and my voice? And
Mm.
of course, while doing this work, there were so many big shifts that I had to create in my own life,
I'm
because
sure.
as you learn, you grow and you bring changes in your own personal attitude, your personal consumption patterns, your, everything changes. And I think, I mean, I'm learning to be a better citizen of the planet than perhaps ever before.
And what are some simple things that all of us who are watching you today, what can we do in our lives to reduce the carbon footprint? Some simple tips that you
You
suggest for
know,
all of us.
see, the fact of the matter, Dia, is that we all need to acknowledge something, and that is post-industrial revolution. The way we've conducted our lives, built cities, built businesses, built industry, um, we've altered 75% of the Earth's surface. We've caused huge environmental imbalances, ecological imbalances, and our pollution through caused by the waste we've created and so much else is single-handedly responsible for the disruption of human life and the death, the devastation, the destruction. And climate, of course, is one very significant part or outcome of all of this, as is this pandemic.
Mhm.
So the question is, what can you and I do to make a
Correct.
difference?
Yeah.
I think the first and the most important thing is to acknowledge that our choices and actions have an impact on the planet and on all other lives and living beings. So everything we use every day, everything we eat every day, everything we throw away every day is making that difference.
Yes.
The second thing that we need to understand is that we have the power of personal choice and we can make better choices. And as
Absolutely.
we make those choices, we also have the power to compel governments and industry and civil society to do better.
Yes.
So I think some of the simple things that you and I can easily do is to switch to a mostly plant based diet, refuse all single use plastics, compost and segregate waste at home, um, and just reduce your levels of consumption and waste. And then, of course, once you do these things, the list is endless. There's just so much more one can do. I've made a switch from regular cleaners to completely natural cleaners. Even my personal hygiene items now have been completely replaced with totally sustainable and natural products.
Wow.
Um, I remember one of the first few things that I made a switch was regular sanitary napkins to biodegradable sanitary napkins, because I didn't know for the entire duration of my life that I was using sanitary napkins that they were made mostly of plastic and were being incinerated and cause so much devastation and ill health.
Absolutely.
And imagine, it's such an irony, and so much of actually what we've done as human beings is ironical, because what is supposed to be something that is it's supposed to empower women and take care of their health and hygiene is actually causing cervical cancer and all kinds of cancers and polluting the soil and the air and the water. So
Which is why conversations like this are so important because we need to be aware. Most people don't even know, I think, about these details, or they don't have the time to know about these details. So I think it's so
I
important that you're
agree.
sharing all this.
Yeah, the important thing is to start questioning everything we use
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
ask
Yes.
ourselves, where is this coming from and where is it going to go and how is it
Correct.
going to impact our health and the health of the planet.
Absolutely. Even water, I mean, I think you said each one should have a bath which is the length of one song only, right? So that's
Right.
an important tip we can give everybody who's watching us today.
That's absolutely right. So when you want to
Yeah.
conserve water to make sure it lasts the length of a song,
One
if you're a
song. That's
singer,
enough.
if you're not a
I
singer,
love
just
that.
yeah, it's
Yes,
great fun.
yes, bathroom
So
sing, yes.
I'm
And what about the metal bottle that you talk about? That's
it's
also such an amazing thing.
well, we've tried to make it like a style statement. It's trending. A lot of people are doing it now, which is great because 90% of single-use plastic bottles are not recycled and they last in the environment for over 1,000 years, and are most likely never disappear because they just become microplastics. And so the thing about the reason why we push so hard for people to stop using single-use plastics and switch to their own traveling bottles, which is either a metal or a glass bottle, and carry your own water to work or wherever it is that you have to go, is because um, plastic has become so pervasive of our everyday lives and of the environment that today scientists are seeing evidence of plastic microns even in a woman's amniotic fluid,
Oh my God. Okay.
and it's been detected in the bloodstream of babies. We've all seen enough imagery of how whale
Yes.
sharks have drifted afloat onto the beach with
Yes.
thousands of kgs of
Horrible.
plastic
Horrible images. Yes. Even that sea turtle which had the, I think,
with
a
the
earbud in its nose.
button snout. Yeah,
Horrible. Yeah.
there
That's
are.
how. Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that our mismanagement of plastic and our complete disregard of how we are managing our plastic waste has led
Hmm.
us to this point, and it is upon us now to hold governments and industries accountable. There's something we're working very
Absolutely.
hard on trying to achieve, which is called the extended producer's responsibility.
Okay.
I hope we can get it drafted and implemented, because even our waste management, we don't have laws for waste management in our country. We only have guidelines.
Mhm.
And you know how good we are with following guidelines.
In fact, when I was doing my research for today's session, I read that the fashion industry is actually the biggest contributor to carbon emissions, even more than the shipping and the airline industry. I
That's
had
true.
no idea about that.
That's true.
That's,
Which is why we need to
yeah,
stop using fast fashion. We need to
yes,
start looking
absolutely.
back to what our mothers and our grandmothers did, which is to choose garments and textile, which is what is called forever fashion.
Forever
Things
fashion,
that
yes,
we can
yes,
continue to wear and pass on generations. And also, like I said earlier, this compulsive need to have more, buy more, comes from a capitalist consumerist mindset that has been
yeah.
cultivated by just everything, right? Everything, everywhere you look, somebody's asking you to buy something.
Very true. Very true. Yes. So, how have your own fashion choices changed through your journey of awareness?
I look for the story behind the garment. I
Okay.
choose textile and garment that uplifts lives, that is sustainable, that is completely natural, and that has a long, durable lifespan.
Okay. Good choices. So, how do we make being sustainable trendy? Because a lot of people think it's like, oh, that's if you're sustainable, then you're wearing very dukhi, plain Jane kind of clothing. How do we change that mindset with the younger people?
I'm quite trendy.
Yeah, you are very trendy. Yes, of course. So how do we make the younger people aware?
We've got lovely, 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 lovely designers in India,
Okay.
locally
Yes.
based designers that are making the most gorgeous handcrafted clothes. And all we need to do is find them. Yes, they are a little more expensive than fast fashion, but they last
Yes.
longer, they're
They
more
last longer.
durable, and they're more healthy.
And of course, you recently had a very sustainable wedding, and we saw those beautiful images of your wedding. And it was so intimate, so simple, and yet so, so beautiful. So tell us, what did you do at the wedding for sustainable, to maintain the sustainability of the event?
I think the most sustainable thing about the wedding was the fact that um, there were very few people who traveled. It was a very intimate, very small wedding. Most of our guests, 99% of our guests were local,
Okay.
and the decor was completely natural with locally sourced flowers. We did it in our garden at the back of the building, which is a
Oh,
place I spend every morning of my life at, listening to bird song. And it's got
lovely.
those beautiful trees and flowering plants and everything. And so we didn't really crowd the space with too much decor. We just kind of amplified or highlighted certain areas of the space.
Yeah.
And every other item or element of decor was reusable and recyclable. The food was also catered with very specific instructions. We knew
Numbers,
exactly
yes.
who we knew who exactly who ate what and what kind of quantities, so we had no food waste. I think that's a very big part of making a wedding sustainable. The other thing that we did was we ensured there was absolutely no plastic at our wedding. So water was served in glass bottles. All our personal hygiene goods were sourced from Biko, which is a sustainable brand in India. So to, whether it's toilet paper or napkins, it's all kind of made with bamboo pulp, recycled bamboo pulp. Um, what else? We
And
made
Dia,
sure our
you had a female priest. That was such an amazing visual. We saw that
yes.
image on
So that
Instagram.
yeah,
Amazing.
no, not everybody who talks about the sustainable aspect of the wedding talks about the female priest, and I think that's actually one of the most significant parts
Absolutely.
of
Absolutely.
sustainable wedding, because you cannot achieve any form of sustainability without gender equality. And
Absolutely. Yes.
this Sheila Atta, who was our priestess, was absolutely divine, and it was just so special to have her
Lovely.
conduct the ceremony. Yeah.
How lovely. How lovely. And I think you've set an example for so many others young girls are going to get married ahead, I'm sure.
I hope
So
so. I hope so because I mean,
I'm sure.
I was fascinated and overwhelmed with the kind of response and interest so many people showed in the way we conducted that ceremony and that day in our lives. And it really it kind of encourages you to keep walking your truth and your path because I do believe that when you do something that resonates with other people, more people will follow.
No, Dia, there's such a consistency in your whole approach to life. I mean, I've just seen it whether you were whether you were a pageant winner or in the movies or today as an environmentalist. So how do you retain this purity? Life is quite harsh sometimes. How have you been able to keep this essence? It's magical. Please tell us your secret.
Uh, I think we're all seeking balance, and I found my balance through meditation and the work that I do. I also feel that maybe because I was raised in an environment that didn't breed insecurity
That's so
and
important. So important.
and helped me be fearless, that I can continue to have the optimism and the positivity that I have even today because things can be so disillusioning. I mean, look
Of
around us right
course.
now, look at what's happening.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
terrifying. It's
Absolutely.
really
Yes.
terrifying. And now, like as an expectant mother, I feel even more terrified about the kind of place and the world that I'm bringing this child into.
Of
But the
course. I
only
can
way
understand.
I think we can keep going is to keep our own center and our own balance and our own love and positivity alive and shining every day.
Yes, so true. So true. So, Dia, I'm going to ask you two, three short questions, like a soul to soul session. So, one of them is to appreciate nature. If you had to shortlist two best films or documentaries that people should watch, we have so many people watching our event today. What would you recommend that we do?
Or please go to Netflix and watch any one of David Attenborough's documentaries.
Yes, I think
Uh,
that's the one. Yes.
Planet Earth 1, 2, Life on Earth, anyone.
And what is that song, book, or movie that you would call your life's theme or your anthem, something that you swear by?
Imagine, I think, is one of my favorite songs.
Ah, lovely, lovely. Mine too. So, when do you feel that your faith in yourself has been the most tested till today?
I think it's been tested at different times in different ways. Um, but faith is such a deep thing, right? How
Very,
can it
yes,
be shaken unless you allow it to be?
very well said. Very well said. That's so true, true. And what has been your biggest fear that you've overcome? The greatest fear that you had and you overcome it now?
Um, I think the biggest fear that the line of work that I do created in me, manifested in me, was the fear of rejection. And I've totally overcome it. I totally,
Amazing.
absolutely believe in what it is that I have to offer and deliver to my job. And I only work with those who value it and who can see it.
Very well said. And I've read that you paint, you write poetry, you write yourself too. So, what is that one skill that you still want to learn? Something that you feel you need to learn more, something you need to acquire?
I need to learn how to play the guitar, and I'm hoping my husband will teach me.
Okay, lovely, lovely.
I've
So then
always
you
had
can.
this image from my mind, in my mind, of playing the guitar and singing a song with my children. I really want to learn how to play the guitar.
I'm sure you can learn it now during lockdown. You can take the advantage of this time, right? Right.
That's the plan.
So, what is your message to everybody who's watching us today? That's going to be my last question because we're completely out of time. So, I've just skipped a lot of what we were going to discuss. So, tell me, what is your message to all of us? We are in a pandemic, life is hard. So, what do you suggest that we all do?
The world needs more empathy and more love
Yes.
and more action. Please continue to question all that is unfair. Please do everything that you can to help others. And please don't lose faith in humanity.
So well said. So uplifting, Dia. It's really been so uplifting to speak to you, and you really walk the talk. So I'm going to invite Sumita Di now to join us on screen. Sumita Di?
Well, it's wonderful listening to your stories, life stories, and so very interesting. Thanks for being so candid and frank. And thank you for your advocacy and congratulations for being advocate for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the takeaway message for today, I think each one of us can be agent of change
Yes,
and can
yes,
work for a better world. Now,
absolutely.
we can thank our members, online viewers. Over to Dia now.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much once again, Dia. And I think truly it's conversations like today with role models like you, which highlight how broken our relationship with nature is. And how that's why I think we're in the biggest crisis in the modern world. So the message of conservation, care for nature and wildlife and environment is so, so important today. So to all of you who are watching us today, remember to safeguard our environment. It's the best life insurance policy we can make for our children. And it's also the best fixed deposit to safeguard their future. So let's walk the talk and work together to make this world a better place. Thank you all once again. And I wish you a safe and pleasant weekend. And thank you so much, Dia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you said something very important. I'm going to say one last thing before I leave.
Of course,
When I
please.
speak of empathy, compassion, care, and action, I promise you none of this is possible without a connection with nature. So rebuild your relationship with nature.
Yes. Yes, we definitely we're going to do that. And thank you again for your time, dear. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so
Stay
much.
well. Bye. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.